Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a complete breakdown compilation of all 6 episodes of Marvel Studios' The Falcon and the Winter Soldier that originally streamed on Disney Plus starting spring 2021. Ahead of Captain America: Brave New World, many of you were asking for a way to get caught up on everything that happens in those 6 episodes, scene by scene, Easter egg by Easter egg, wrong theory by wrong theory, and so we here have reassembled the breakdowns that we made in March and April 2021 into this longer compilation so that you have another way of going back through it all, podcast style. Perhaps what's most fun about this process is seeing what theories I had for that show in the earlier episodes that ended up being completely wrong by the end. Thanks a lot, power broker Sharon Carter. And really just to re-examine that roadie scene before we knew that there was a deleted scene that suggested that roadie was actually a Skrull imposter that had swapped in shortly after the events of Avengers Endgame. But I kept in all those goofy theories here, as they were, to capture what it really felt like living through The Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode by episode. So what you're going to watch here is just a great way to remember how the MCU brought Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes together on this journey, the introductions of characters like Joaquin Torres and Val and John Walker that really set the political stakes for this world as it is now in the MCU that made it so brave and new. So sit back and enjoy New Rockstars breakdowns of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Take it away, Erik, from March 2021. And this is a breakdown of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 1. Here we go. We open on Sam Wilson ironing a dark suit as we hear,
"How does it feel? Like it's someone else's." It isn't.
Words quoted from Avengers Endgame, the moment Old Man Cap handed off his shield to Sam.
How does it feel? Like it's someone else's. It isn't.
But the tone of this opening scene makes it seem like we're headed to Old Cap's funeral. And in a way, the ceremony Sam goes to is a kind of funeral, but for Cap's shield, which Sam does bury here, first in the metaphorical coffin of this art case that Steve kept it in, which at the time was a nod to his sketching hobby that he was always doing on the side, and then eventually to its resting place tomb of Cap's Smithsonian exhibit. The shield being a symbol for Steve Rogers getting unearthed disrespectfully in the final scene is a big reason why Sam feels so upset by it. Not just Indiana Jones saying, "That belongs in a museum," but someone feeling like their buddy's corpse was dragged out, Weekend at Bernie's style. And back in that scene in Avengers Endgame, the uplifting music at the time made Sam feel hopeful, honored, ready in that moment. But now the exchange removed from that makes Sam come off as doubtful, overwhelmed, burdened. This legacy is the core theme of this series. What happens when the torch that you're passed is not a torch you ever wanted to bear, but rather a flame that you feel is best left to die down naturally? I should also point out that this shield is technically a new shield. Remember, Cap's historic shield was broken and destroyed by Thanos during the Battle of Earth. This one is a new design with new notches and engravings if you look closely. Where did it come from? Well, Cap stayed in the 1940s with Peggy Carter, and according to the Endgame directors, he lived out his life in an alternate branch history, another timeline that unfolded off screen. So this redesigned shield could have all kinds of secrets that old Cap left for Sam specifically, including, many of us have theorized, it could be composed not of vibranium this time, but the original substance that it was in the comics, proto-adamantium. In a mission, Sam rescued Captain Vassant from a criminal organization called LAF, led by Georges Batroc, returning from Captain America: The Winter Soldier. On the ground, Sam's contact is First Lieutenant Joaquin Torres, a name from the Marvel Comics. He's the guy who takes on the Falcon mantle briefly when Sam takes on the Cap mantle. So in the comics, Torres got his bird powers after being experimented on by a guy named Dr. Carl Malice, aka the Power Broker. Malice is a recurring Marvel villain in the comics. He's tied with Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, and Lamar Hoskins, Battlestar, who could be Clay Bennett's character in the series. Power Broker could be behind a lot of this, and if you were looking closely in the episode's closing credits, there was a warning saying Power Broker is watching. Sam dives into action off the plane, just like Tony Stark's entrance in Iron Man 2, and actually throughout this battle, his close-ups kind of parallel the HUD view framing used for Iron Man and War Machine. Great action here. Sam uses his thrusters to ram a dude's head into the crate. Louis, the pilot, gets a classic straight bullet hit the driver, oh no! Except this time he's given a love tap. There's a moment where a Batroc thumps his chest and then Sam responds by extending his wings. It's such a great macho aggression dance they're doing, like a simian chest thump and then an avian feather puff. Now you remember Sam's drone, Red Wing, named after his bird companion, Red Wing. But now the drone responds to Sam's voice commands.
Red Wing, get him off our ass!
Yeah, Red Wing totally just R2-D2'd with a bird-like whistle. Very nice. But then after the battle, Sam and Torres have this moment.
You could try to reroute that to the other.
Did you not?
Oh.
I've been working with the Air Force for 6 months now. Every time Ops touches him, he gets all glitchy.
Okay, so first off, 6 months, telling us this takes place 6 months after Endgame, about 5 months after the Westview anomaly of WandaVision, setting this around April 2024, which would be about 2 months before Spider-Man Far From Home. But more importantly, Sam's testy response. Now you could read this as a sign that Torres, as a potential successor to Sam in the Falcon title, is ready to take over Red Wing, or this could be Sam suspecting that the military has been sabotaging his tech before missions. Think about it, what was this mission? Sam was given hardly any backup on this dangerous hush-hush operation, and then surprise, surprise, the hijacking was already in progress. And it's all to save some captain before they get into Libyan airspace. Why? It's also suspect that Batroc is involved, because remember, that dude was actually paid by Nick Fury to capture the Lemurian star. There was a lot of double-crossing going on in Winter Soldier, which feels like is the case in this show. I'm very excited. Batroc led a whole sneaky military operation that specifically kept an Avenger in the blind from his own government. Look, I'm just saying, I would not be surprised if in the show Sam is being set up to fail, so that the government could replace him with Torres as Falcon, just like they have their own poster boy to replace Cap. Torres also suspiciously live streams everything, and he takes a mental note when he hears Sam speaking Arabic.
He knows Arabic. Wait, can you say that again? What was that?
And during this, Torres' app shows an AR symbol of the Flag Smashers.
Basically, they think that the world was better during the blip. Trust me, it wasn't.
Trust me, every time something gets better for one group, it gets worse for another.
Sam gives his take on inequality, which does come back later this episode. And then Torres says this about the Flag Smashers.
Yeah, essentially, these people, they want a world that's unified without borders. So you can see why a lot of people are into that.
So the Flag Smashers get their name from Flag Smasher Carl Morgenthau, a Cap villain who has a similar philosophy. Aaron Kellyman is playing a character named Carly Morgenthau, probably the actual leader of this group. And then Torres asks what happened to Cap.
I do gotta ask you though, because like online, there's just been a lot of stuff about Steve. Actually, some people they think that he's in the secret base on the moon.
Well, I can assure you, those people you don't have to take seriously.
Don't have to take the online theorists seriously. Okay, ouch, I get it. But I bring it up because Torres is eager to know where Cap is. So if old Cap is not dead, where is he? Well, the moon's not that crazy of an answer in the MCU because there are Avengers currently in space. Nick Fury is aboard a Skrull space station alongside, it sounds like, Monica Rambeau now after that WandaVision post-credit scene. I'm just saying, this show did not have to bring up this mystery at all. So since it did in the opening episode, I think we can expect some kind of answer. Then moving on, boom, you're looking for Rhodey. He attends Sam's shield handing off ceremony.
We need new heroes. One suited for the times we're in.
You, Sam, I'm not that old. We see some relics from Cap's first film, his motorcycle, headlines about bombers hitting Hydra targets, the Howling Commandos uniform, Steve's 4F denial form, that Captain America #1 cover where Hitler gets punched, which they restaged during that USO tour sequence. But this exhibit has been updated with new MCU history. We see plaques reading Bucky Barnes, friend and brother killed in action, and then Winter Soldier from friend to foe, then a threat from within Hydra, the Sokovia Accords, a team divided. Also, the illuminated walls show symbols of the eagle from the Sokovian flag, the SHIELD logo, and the Hydra logo. But then Bucky's Civil War plaque reads, Captain America himself led this effort to bring Barnes to justice and later aided in the escape from custody, having been convinced of his innocence. Steve's loyalty to his old friend, coupled with his refusal to sign the Sokovia Accords, led to the dissolution of the Avengers, and drove the Captain into hiding with other like-minded Avengers, including Natasha Romanoff, Wanda Maximoff, and Sam Wilson. The current whereabouts of Barnes remains unknown, having been labeled a fugitive following his escape from custody. Then we get an Infinity War plaque showing Ebony Maw's Q-ship hovering over New York City, reading, out of hiding, New York under attack. Something. Former Avengers, including Natasha Romanoff, Wanda Maximoff, and Sam Wilson, was forced to operate off the grid and live a new life as fugitives after aiding and abetting accused Bonds. With some ties to S.H.I.E.L.D. and the intelligence community still intact, the team was forced to aid in the protection of Earth and its citizens. After 2 years of operating outside the law, a new threat from above brought Steve Rogers and his team out of hiding to once again join the fight. New York was under attack, and much like the events of 2012 that led to the forming of the Avengers, the threat was from another world. While the casualties, destruction, and impact of this event seemed to have much less of an impression as a whole, it wasn't until a short time later that the true effect of the damage was suffered. Referring to the, we all remember. And then we see a nice long list of names from the Vanished. MT actually helped me go through this, and a lot of these are real-life Marvel Studios employees. We got Victoria Alonso, executive producer for the show, Derek Kolstad, a writer for the series, Jack Lazaro, a key makeup artist, Frank Amoroso, a construction PA for Infinity War, Kelsey Liu, production and development manager, Phil Langone, a storyboard artist for Homecoming and Far From Home, Sean Windish, a special special effects for many Marvel titles. Denise Woodgard, a Dailies producer. Ben Woodworth, Marvel special effects artist. Noah Wellner, Marvel transportation. Courtney Young, the dialect coach. Her name actually appeared in the WandaVision credits. Carolyn Jovetic, an assets coordinator. Kelly Zach, makeup artist. Lionel Zapien, a special effects tech. Chuck Slotnick, a Marvel photographer. Kaylin Littleton, Christopher Lucas, VFX artist. And Richard Lupton, VFX artist. There's probably more names after people here. But then we see the board for The Blip, followed by a plaque reading A Final Mission. The vanishing resulted in the disappearance of half of all life in the universe. Captain America was unable to overcome the loss. After 5 years of drifting, Captain America and the remaining Avengers were able to regroup with a new plan to undo the damage inflicted by the Mad Titan known as Thanos. This time, Steve Rogers and his team were successful and able to save those that had vanished, but with some personal loss. With the death of Tony Stark, Steve Rogers honored his friend by finally laying down his shield, enjoying the things he had fought so hard to protect. And with this exhibit, we honor the life and legacy of Steve Rogers, Captain America, soldier, hero. Now, notice how this doesn't mention what Cap did in the time heist, either in the main time heist or the final trip he takes to return the stone. So, to the rest of the world, it's still a mystery where old Cap is, and the kids at Midtown High thought he was just dead or gone. Then Rhodey says,
World's a crazy place right now. People are, well, nobody's stable. Allies are now enemies. Alliances are all torn apart. The world's broken.
yeah, the world is still a mess 6 months later, and these words kind of echo Fury's caution at the top of Captain America Winter Soldier. Trust no one, even the people you thought were allies. They're talking to you, Sam. You're being set up, buddy. And then this final shot, Sam's reflection is superimposed on the shield, paralleling that shot of Steve in the first Cap film, framing also seen in Doctor Strange and Into the Spider-Verse, a hero struggling to see himself fitting in that suit. And of course, this shield is on Sam's left. Bucky experiences a nightmare of a memory of a past Winter Soldier mission. I love how the opening shot of this hotel, you can see his shadow creeping across the ceiling. Creepy. And this music should also sound familiar. They brought back Henry Jackman, composer of Winter Soldier, and created this chilling, distorted cry for Bucky by himself screaming into a drum to evoke Bucky's scream as he fell into Hydra's clutches. Bucky delivers the kill with
Hail Hydra.
If Bucky gave this vaya con Dios to every kill, imagine Howard Stark and Maria Stark hearing Hail Hydra in their final moments. God. Bucky wakes from this nightmare sleeping on the floor, reminding us of Sam and Steve's chat before.
It's your bed, right?
What's that?
Your bed is too soft. When I was over there, I sleep on the ground, use rock for pillows like a caveman. Now I'm home, lying in my bed, and it's like...
lying on a marshmallow. I feel like I'm gonna sink right to the floor.
Director Kari Skoglund frames Bucky's therapy oddly, first in front of this forest mural, springtime, the Winter Soldier melting away into spring, but then these uncomfortable extreme close-ups angled downward. This is to convey the claustrophobic anxiety Bucky feels in this moment, getting interrogated like that. Bucky talks about how he made amends with the corrupt Senator Atwood, former Hydra member, and he claims to have followed the 3 rules given to him by the therapist. Don't do anything illegal, don't hurt anyone, and repeat the mantra.
I am no longer the Winter Soldier.
I am James Bucky Barnes,
And you're part of my efforts to make amends.
Also, fish off reins, not food. If you think about it, Bucky actually only followed the 3rd rule, but to be fair, that was probably the hardest one of the 3 for him to do so. And then he crosses Atwood off his list. Listing in a small notebook like this is another Cap parallel. Cap listed new things to learn, Bucky lists old things to fix. Now, among these names is A. Rostov, maybe for Andrei Rostov, aka the Red Barbarian, a Soviet general and arms dealer in the comics. He wardened a gulag where Bucky was imprisoned and then later was killed in the Bahamas during a sale of the Zephyr Codes, assumed to be a Winter Soldier hit. P.W. Hauser is a name of the actor who co-starred alongside Sebastian Stan in I, Tonya. H. Hendrickson could refer to Hal Hendrickson, a soldier who got the Venom symbiote before Flash in later Marvel comics. And Kuznetsov could be a reference to the name of the Soviet scientist who created the Udarnik android. And then of course H. Zemo, for Helmut Zemo from Civil War, who is returning in the series as of yet a no-show, but he did frame Bucky and get the Avengers all broken up. Trailer footage shows Bucky coming face-to-face with Zemo. Cannot wait for that conversation. Then there's L. Kaminsky, could be for Len Kaminsky, comics writer, but what I love most about this shot is that in the very first frame of it, you can see a small glimpse of the next page, where at the top of that, Y. Nakajima, Yori Nakajima, the father of the bystander Bucky murdered in the hotel, literally the next name on Bucky's list. And this whole list is a reminder of Bucky's heartbreaking response to Tony in Civil War.
Do you even remember them? I remember all of them.
Bucky gets lunch with Mr. Nakajima, whom he adorably relates with as a fellow elderly man, down to reading the obituaries from the newspaper.
Take a look.
Nobody made it past 90 this week.
So young. Such a shame.
And then Yori sees the mochi and remembers his son.
私の息子、あれ、大福大好きだったの。
Now, Bucky seems to understand Yori's Japanese, kind of like Sam. He's surprisingly multilingual, though I guess Bucky was an international assassin. He was also able to speak Romanian and Bucharest. Now, Yori's sadness here triggers Bucky's Winter Soldier past again. You can tell by this music sting. But it softens right as Bucky blinks. See, only by blinking can Bucky quiet the scream, giving context to that trailer clip where he's mocked for never blinking.
Just blink, sweet Jesus. I mean, how old are you?
It's because he never forgets. Sam visits his family in Louisiana, his 2 nephews and his sister Sarah.
Uncle Sam!
What's up?
That's right. Uncle Sam.
Yeah, I love how Sarah paints Sam as a US military propaganda tool, despite Sam turning down that legacy. And when it comes to this whole boat stuff, you wish Vision was here. He could totally help Sam make this boat profitable. All you have to do is dismantle this vessel plank by plank and build a second ship of Theseus out of it that they could write off as a business expense. On a date with Leah, the sushi server, Bucky gets into a cat fight. And then some awkward small talk.
What are you doing?
I'm reading your mind.
Please don't.
Yeah, Bucky is warning, you don't want to know what's going on in my mind, but also, hey, lady, I spent decades with people controlling my mind. Stay out of it. Meanwhile, Torres flash mobs with the Flag Smashers who rob this Swiss bank. Switzerland, of course, is the home country of Arnim Zola. Hashtag Zola Drain. But really, Swiss banks have the reputation of looking the other way for criminal enterprises. So I'm wondering if the Flag Smashers could be ripping off a crime lord here. Maybe someone headquartered in Madripoor. We'll see. Sam and Sarah are denied a bank loan from the douchiest banker.
How do you guys make a living? I mean, your financials are all over the place. Is there some kind of fund for heroes, or did Stark pay you when he was around? My condolences, by the way.
The Avengers' income and expenses has been a recurring question for the MCU. In the comics, it's reported that they make 6-figure salaries via government contracts, but it was never really clear how Team Cap runaways got by for 2 years on the run. My guess was that T'Challa could have hooked them up with funding, given Steve and T'Challa's arrangement after Civil War. Sam refuses to give up and sell the family boat.
We're not selling our family's legacy.
This parallels Sam's feelings about Cap's shield. Sam got a rude awakening about how your rightful legacy can be unfairly taken from you. You can't just preserve these things in stone for whenever he wants to go home to visit them. Legacy is something you have to work and fight to preserve. He has to do it with the Wilson family boat, and he's got to do it with the shield. Sam and Torres discuss the Flag Smashers.
Anything else happen outside the video?
Nah, man, my face was in the dirt before I knew what was happening. Why? What are you thinking?
Nothing.
Wait, you don't think he could be a...
Look, I'll circle back to you. Let's keep this between me and you.
What? I feel like we're back with Westview Herb here. She came here because we're all what? Wait, did we ever find out? We're all trapped in Wanda's hex reality, but at this particular moment being additionally puppeted by Agatha, and Agatha's only pretending to be nervous here. I'm still trying to unpack all the layers of that. He may have been about to say that the Flag Smasher's super strength is a result of Super Soldier Serum, since we know from the Winter Soldier program that other batches of serum were out there, and back in Phase 1, Thaddeus Ross was trying to reboot Cap's Super Soldier program, which led to Hulk and Abomination. That might also explain the Flag Smasher's disaffected political views, like with worldwide anarchy, there's no government that can weaponize you. And this could support the theory that Ross has a secret replacement Avengers team called the Thunderbolts. Now, I've also made the case for mutants, like perhaps the events of Endgame finally activated the mutant gene in certain members of the population, or if this power broker Malice is behind this, these could be enhanced humans from his experiments. Now, the press conference plays on WHIH, the MCU news service, we saw that in WandaVision, and then they introduce the new Captain America, John Walker, played by Wyatt Russell. Now, in the comics, John Walker goes by Super Patriot, aka US Agent. He's a wrestler turned vigilante, aiming to take over the Cap mantle. He's kind of a jerk. Now, this same government official who introduced him previously told Sam that handing in the shield was the right thing to do. Obviously, this guy and the whole government never intended to keep it in the museum, which feeds my suspicion that the government is setting up Sam to fail. They are not on his side. And then Walker freaking winks at us, a coy little FU to Sam, and something we learned from Agatha Harkness, not a trustworthy sign at all. Getting some major Homelander vibes here. But more importantly, on his hip is a gun. Now, Cap used a gun in World War II. It was a World War but he didn't really use one in the modern era. His shield was his primary weapon. So the fact that Walker has a gun right now tells us that he and his handlers really want to revert Cap to a propaganda tool that he was in the 40s. But more worrisome that they do not appreciate the true worth of this shield in his hands. Now the end credits actually reveal a lot of clues in the form of this graffiti and wall art, old Uncle Sam and Cap propaganda posters, a beastly figure with Chinese lettering, maybe a sign of that Bronze Monkey Club in Madripoor, an Illuminati eye, maybe a nod to the Cap-related conspiracy theories out there, graffiti from the Flag Smashers, One World People. There's a headline saying Shadow Group pulls off weapons heist, which could refer to the Flag Smashers, and then a search log for Subject 02656. And then right next to this subject form is the face of Carl Lumley, who was rumored to be in this cast. A lot of us believe that he could be playing Isaiah Bradley, the original Black Cap, whose history was kind of erased. This legacy seems to be something that's going to be very important to Sam going forward. How do you reconcile these two things? Also, we see another headline related to this that says all information regarding the Enhanced Humans Act has been reported to be classified by Major Donovan of Special Unit something. So yeah, maybe there was some secret government program to enhance humans that we haven't been told about yet. This could be what Thaddeus Ross was working on. Someone who knows, he was Secretary of State before. He might be President Ross now. He could be the president who issued that pardon and selected this new replacement Cap. Maybe he had some Thunderbolts-esque enhancement program involving the power broker. We also see the text Agent 13, that's referencing Sharon Carter. Then we see Public Law 10756. The nation is called upon to recognize the patriotism of fellow citizens from all ethnic, racial, and religious. This is a reference to government code that says that the military is not allowed to discriminate based off of any of these things. Something that could also be related to the history of Black Cap. Then a headline, Masked Man plagues downtown Prague, which could be referencing Zemo or Taskmaster from the Black Widow film, who seems like a masked figure who could be terrorizing these Eastern European cities. Then conditions of release. You must appear in court when ordered. You must obey all court orders. You must notify 24 hours before moving. This seems to be conditions of Bucky's pardon, or maybe the conditions of Zemo's release. Then we see the date December 16th, 1991. That's a date Bucky killed Howard Stark and Maria Stark. Also, there's later a mission report from Hydra where it mentions Long Island, New York, where this took place. Then a postcard from Madripoor. But then the most interesting one to me, something that looks like a bullet casing containing a blue fluid, maybe darts containing super soldier serum. The text before the title comes up, where do we go now that they're gone? Where do we go now that they're gone? Of course, it was with a text on the poster in Steve Rogers' support group in Endgame. And then outlines of people with half of them filled in black, maybe for half of the vanished persons. And then again, Power Broker is watching. Then something that says District of Columbia Support Group check-in. That's Sam's veterans group that he does counseling with. Then a headline that says Senator Atwood pushes for perimeter border enforcement. So maybe the senator that Bucky got arrested was pushing for some border enforcement there. Then this interesting thing, Article 33, no contracting state shall expel or return a refugee in any manner whatsoever. This actually comes from the UN Refugee Agency, a condition that was published in 1977, informing what participating nation states should do with refugees. Maybe a little political statement from the show right here, something that might play an important role in this show. Maybe some of these Flag Smashers were rejected refugees. And then some text that says must reveal their legal names and true identities to the United Nations. I assume this is from the Sokovia Accords. We get a US Army poster for John Walker. Cap is back. But then someone tagged on him manufactured hero. So even they know this guy is a phony propaganda tool. And then missing posters for loved ones lost in the blip, paper peeling back to show the Winter Soldier activation code words, and then the purple mask of Zemo. Hopefully someone we will see next episode. And then a quick flashing of text, if you look closely, reading, enhanced individuals won't save us. Quite an interesting slogan. Who wrote this? Where is it coming from? Maybe some government propaganda. They don't want us to trust Avengers anymore. Trust our new team of homegrown heroes. And this is a breakdown of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. Okay, so last episode I pointed out how the opening close-ups of Sam ironing that black suit gave us some major funeral vibes, as Sam did hope to entomb Cap's shield in the museum. And the opening image of this episode views his wardrobe similarly, with the close-up of that zipper going down like a body bag, opening up to reveal a corpse inside, which metaphorically it is kind of the corpse of Steve Rogers' legacy. Sam wanted to lay it to rest. John Walker is kind of Frankensteining it back to life in quite an unnatural way. This whole locker room scene paints a sympathetic picture of Walker.
Everybody in the world expects me to be something, and I don't want to fail them.
Good morning, America.
Yeah, I get you, John. Good Morning America can be quite a nerve-wracking thing to do. Also, does GMA being in the MCU now make me MCU canon by extension? Walker's buddy here is Lamar Hoskins, aka Battlestar. So in the comics, John Walker started as Super Patriot, kind of an asshole replacement Cap, and he's accompanied by bold urban commandos or Buckies, including Hoskins. Walker ends up getting the Cap title, he goes crazy, kills a bunch of people, and eventually the government makes him US agent, whose uniform actually looks a lot like what Walker wears here. This episode makes it seem like they could have decent intentions, despite clues pointing otherwise.
2 weeks ago, we're prepping the team for a special ops mission in Chile, and now this.
It's been a lot of handshakes, a lot of suits, a lot of speeches and senator meetings.
Now remember, Bucky just busted Senator Atwood, former Hydra operative, which seemed like a one-off thing, except the end credits included a missable headline about Senator Atwood pushing for border enforcement. I don't know, maybe this senator was pushing Walker to round up border crossers. And then that mission in Chile, the last time we saw a special ops team in South America, it was led by a super soldier sent by Thaddeus Ross, who also might be behind all of this. His name appeared in the end credits with a mention of Enhanced Humans Act. Now, Hoskins mentioned the Star Spangled Man with the Plan, which is this episode's title, and the marching band music is that same Star Spangled Man with a Plan from Cap's War Bonds tour in the first Cap film. Yeah, this is all a modern version of that same original Cap publicity tour, down to signing collectibles. Custer's Grove High School. Custer's Grove is the hometown of John Walker in the comics. It's also where the extremist group, the Watchdogs, try to kill Walker and then end up getting his parents killed, making him go berserk. The GMA interviewer says,
"The government did a study of your body at MIT and you tested off the charts in every measurable category: speed, endurance, intelligence."
Look, here's the thing. I'm not Tony Stark, I'm not Dr. Banner.
Then we see shots of him with a punching bag, recalling Cap with the punching bag in Avengers, and then footage of him with the shield, a shield that he would have just gotten, meaning his coordination must be abnormally good. That might actually be why Walker cuts her off when she is talking about his freaky physiology. I think he and Hoskins might have already been given super soldier serum. Interesting how Walker's suit design positions the A with wings logo so that it bleeds over onto the shoulder strap so that the look is only complete if he is suited up perfectly. Unlike Steve Rogers, who was able to rip his logo off his shoulder and still function in the suit, this guy is a manufactured hero restrained by the government he has to represent with this iconography. Bucky and Sam talk about the big three.
I have a feeling they might be a part of the big three.
What big three?
The big three.
What big three?
Androids, aliens, and wizards.
That's not a thing.
That's definitely a thing.
No, it's not.
Androids for Ultron, aliens for Thanos and his army, wizards presumably for Loki. I mean, Sam wasn't part of the Avengers yet, but remember, Loki learned his sorcery from Frigga, an Asgardian witch. Also, this does take place 5 months after WandaVision. Sam could be also referencing the threat of the witches of Westview, which is gonna come back to the MCU in Multiverse of Madness. And then Bucky says,
"So who are you fighting now, Gandalf?"
How do you know about Gandalf?
I read The Hobbit in 1937 when it first came out.
Yeah, Bucky just checked him with an...
I understood that reference.
He's such a nerd, I love it. And then after a staring contest on the plane, they argue.
Enjoy your ride, Buck.
No, you can't call me that.
Why not? That's what Steve called you.
Steve knew me longer, and Steve had a plan.
What is it?
Only Cap can call him Buck, just like Scott Lang with Cap. Only friends are in the one syllable club. Now, being the man with the plan is really the key here. The titular song in this episode is that Captain America was the Star Spangled Man with the plan. On the Avengers, Cap was really the one who called the shots. He always had the plan. So really the conflict among these four Cap successors is as much over who has the best plan as it is as whoever has the shield. Sam's plan here is kind of what Cap did in Captain America Winter Soldier, just dive out of a plane without a chute. I love how Bucky's like, yeah, I can do it, but then he definitely gets nervous about it and falls pretty hilariously. As they snoop on the Flag Smasher, Sam says,
Little time in Wakanda and you come out White Panther.
It's actually White Wolf.
Huh?
Yeah, remember after Civil War, Bucky rested in Wakanda, and in Black Panther, local Wakandan kids nicknamed him the White Wolf. White Wolf, aka Hunter, is a separate character in the comics, leading the Wakandan secret police. Bucky owns up to this title, despite not really gearing up until the Battle of Wakanda in Infinity War. So in what other ways did he assist Shuri and T'Challa to earn this title? Flag Smasher Carly Morgenthau is played by Erin Kellyman, the Cloud Rider Impus Nest in Solo. She gets her name from the character Flag Smasher Carl Morgenthau Morgenthau in the comics, and she is strong. She breaks Red Wing, but if you think about it, this actually does Sam a favor, since he finds out after this that the government had hacked into that drone to spy on all of his movements. That's why it was glitchy before, and that's probably where they heard the phrase the Big Three. Now the truck license plates are MKA5012 and 2011 EKH. Now 2011 EKH is actually the same tag number as the one on Wanda Maximoff's rental in WandaVision episode 8. 5012 might refer to an alt Marvel Comics universe where Cap is gone. Not sure about that one. But then Cap Walker drops in. Yeah, the composer Henry Jackman worked in a leitmotif to Captain America's theme. It sounds like Cap's promise from Civil War. Now, Bucky has to dodge the shield when Walker throws it. It looks like Walker did not care if he was gonna hit Bucky in the face. Now, later in this fight, Bucky catches the shield with his normal hand, not his vibranium one, and then hands it back to Walker, a nod to his dramatic catch in Winter Soldier, and kind of a way of saying, hey, watch where you throw that thing, Cap. There's a moment where Walker pulls out his gun and shoots a flag smasher. Now, I know Cap used a gun in World War II, and even Sam here uses Red Wing to fire on him, but it is just weird to see Captain America in the modern era of the MCU using a firearm on people. Sam and Bucky conclude these flag smashers must be super soldiers, which seems to come as news to the other guys.
And we're pretty sure it's one of the big three, so.
Aliens, androids, or wizards? There's no such thing as wizards.
All right, then it's aliens or androids.
Or super soldiers.
Shit, super soldiers for real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ah, that look. So either Walker and Hoskins are really dim, or they know full well that the Flag Smashers are enhanced super soldiers because these two came from the same enhancement program. That power broker the Flag Smashers are ripping off could be the power broker who enhanced Walker and Hoskins in the comics, and interestingly later, Joaquin Torres, turning him into the next Falcon. Walker says he jumped on a grenade before, like Cap, but Walker says he used a reinforced helmet. See, his training is a manufactured replica of the real thing that Steve went through because Steve jumped on that grenade assuming he would die. They bring up the GRC, Global Repatriation Council, an agency that manages resources for returning blip refugees. This could be what Thaddeus Ross now heads up, because here he could use this new team of super soldiers to keep the peace internationally. Because we know Ross has been trying to build a team like that for a long time, back to the early days of the Incredible Hulk. And then maybe these Flag Smashers could have been past super soldiers who escaped when the blip happened and stalled Ross's plans. It's all connected.
They provide the resources and we keep things stable.
Violent revolutionaries aren't usually good for anyone's cause.
Usually say about the people with the resources.
Ooh, sounds like Sam's drinking that Flag Smasher Kool-Aid. His bank loan denial reminded him resources are not fairly distributed. And then Walker says,
I'm just trying to be the best Captain America I can be.
How very US Army, be all that you can be. But then he blows it.
It'd be a whole lot easier if I had Cap's wingman on my side.
It's always that last line.
By belittling Sam as merely Cap's wingman, he totally misunderstands the partnership between Sam and Cap. We also learn that Sharon Carter, who's also going to be returning in this show, was, like the rest of them, labeled a criminal for stealing their gear in Civil War. And then Sam meets this kid.
Hey, it's Black Falcon!
Just Falcon, kid.
My daddy told me it's Black Falcon.
Because I'm black and I'm the Falcon?
Well, technically.
So are you, like, Black Kid?
Yes, comics have a history of using characters' race in their name, like Black Goliath, which was later changed to just Goliath. But that this kid's dad called him Black Falcon reflects that many in this society are clearly not colorblind, which is something they find later with this awful encounter with the cops. So Isaiah Bradley, he was the Black Captain America, introduced in 2003. His history was erased. He was one of the 300 black test subjects, which we get a hint at in the end credits, and most of those test subjects died. It was really based on the way the government, in real life, gave black men syphilis in the Tuskegee experiments. Really f***ed up. Now in the comics, Isaiah's grandson is Elijah Bradley, who becomes a young Avenger Patriot, and the kid who answers the door is labeled in the credits as Eli Bradley, Elijah Richardson. And notice his reaction when Isaiah snaps.
I'm not gonna talk about it anymore.
Yeah, in the Young Avengers comics, Eli's powers are later revealed to just be him juicing up with a mutant growth hormone. He actually does not have natural powers. So here, this might be him wishing he had that kind of strength. Isaiah wedges that tin in the wooden frame. It's actually similar to how Sam will later wedge the shield into the wood of a tree. It's kind of like for these guys, the legacy of Cap doesn't allow them to bounce off obstacles like Teflon. They just get stuck in it. Isaiah reveals the awful history of how the government treated him.
You know what they did to me?
for being a hero. They put my ass in jail. For 30 years, people running tests, taking my blood, coming into my cell. Even your people weren't done with me.
And by Bucky's people, he meant Hydra, meaning Hydra might have derived their own super soldier serum cocktail from Isaiah's blood. After they get arrested, Walker gets Bucky out.
Bucky's not going to be following a strict schedule any longer.
We haven't finished our work. Who authorizes?
The biggest douche of Baltimore? As when he threw that shield at Bucky's head, he does not care about Bucky's well-being, only how he can use him. And after leaving therapy, Bucky asks Dr. Rayner,
What was rule number 2 again?
Don't hurt anyone.
Yeah, Bucky needed this reminder as he goes off to face Zemo, another name on his amends list whom I'm sure he wants to hurt very badly. The Flag Smashers gotta scramble.
How much time do we have? None. It's the Power Brokers, man.
Yeah, we saw the name Power Broker in the end credits. Power Broker is watching, and again, I think he is linked to that same whole history of human enhancement that Walker and Hoskins and Thaddeus Ross could be involved in. And we end the episode in this German prison facility that Zemo was left in, and he is in cell 2187, which is a nod to Star Wars. Cell 2187 was where Princess Leia was kept on the Death Star, and itself was a nod to the short film 2187 that inspired George Lucas to make THX 1138, and Star Wars keeps bringing this number back, like later Finn's designation was FN 2187. Mozart's Requiem plays, and then we see the chess set, which actually kind of echoes Magneto's imprisonment in the X-Men movies, but like that supervillain, this guy, I don't think will be in prison for much longer. This is a breakdown of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 3, Power Broker, where the real power belongs to Zemo and Sharon Carter. Okay, we open with a promo video from the Global Repatriation Council. This is the agency in charge of resources and resettlement for blip refugees.
Helping you navigate changes to society, laws, and borders.
Borders, huh? Well, Rhodey did talk about how international alliances had shifted during the blip, and now it is hinted here that maps have been redrawn, as Zemo later confirms with Sokovia. The GRC logo is this globe with small dots growing larger and joining together, reflecting a person rematerializing from dust, as we saw with Monica Rambeau in WandaVision. And from this peaceful message, we smash cut the GRC logo on a police SWAT van. Yeah, uncovering itself to the shield. And John Walker not at all helping the helpless.
Don't give him a second to delete, shred, or breathe.
Yikes, this guy just told police officers don't give him a second to breathe. This week, of all weeks, John Walker, you gotta say something like that. They bust the German who sheltered the Flag Smashers.
Lamar, need a translator.
Walker can't communicate basic German, let alone question this guy respectfully enough to get him to speak in English, which he totally can.
Do you know who I am?
Yes, I do, and I don't care.
Meanwhile, both Sam and Bucky are multilingual. Sam speaks Arabic, Bucky understands Japanese on top of the Romanian he spoke in Civil War. These two are heroes without borders, whereas Walker fights for one country. And Hoskins tells him,
she's giving displaced people shelter and medicine. That kind of thing creates loyalty, man. I know you want this, but we've literally tried everything we can here. So is Langley.
Setting up a future split between these two, now that Walker seems to be spiraling deeper into rage. Now, they also mention Langley here, and the CIA does come up later as a previous employer to Dr. Nagel, so Langley might have actually been leaving Walker in the dark to keep secret their involvement in this super soldier serum development. And then Bucky meets Zemo. Now, last week, the video feed labeled his cell as 2187, a reference to Princess Leia's cell in Star Wars, but for whatever reason, now it's 6172, which, I don't know, maybe you can see as a reference to a Dark Avengers Dark Reign comic, but really folks, any string of numbers can be a reference to some comic issue or publication date. Unless the comic issue is super specific to the scenario the characters are in, it's probably not an Easter egg. But notice the music when Bucky walks in. Yeah, composer Henry Jackman brings back Zemo's melody from Civil War. And if you continue to listen as Zemo repeats the Winter Soldier activation code words,
Желание, Javoy. 17.
Those days are over.
Jackman's Winter Soldier scream creeps back in, but that echo goes silent as Bucky shoos him away, with his line saying those days are over. He is currently in control of this. Now, all of this plays out concurrently with Bucky and Sam's later meeting, which is kind of a screenwriting tool of heist in progress, where characters will explain a seemingly hypothetical future plan while we intercut with that plan actually already in progress. It kind of saves time, it helps with the pacing, but in this case with Zemo, I will say it did make his escape feel a bit easy. But I am interested in how Bucky asks Zemo,
What's the book you're reading?
Machiavelli.
Niccolò Machiavelli was a political theorist known for the concept of civic virtù, wherein the most virtuous and just leader acts not according to any stubborn ideology that he holds, but maneuvers as necessary, keeping people guessing. Machiavelli popularized the idea of the ends justify the means, which Zemo actually echoes in his words to Bucky.
It was never personal. You were simply a means to a necessary end.
Zemo is certainly a Machiavellian figure in the way that he now puts his old Avengers hatred behind him to use Falcon and Bucky towards some new end goal. But what is that goal exactly? Well, look closely at his book. This is actually a German version of Roger D. Master's Fortune is a Raging River, how Leonardo da Vinci and Niccolò Machiavelli wanted to change history. So this book isn't just about Machiavelli, but Machiavelli's friendship with contemporary Italian Renaissance figure and fellow Florence resident Leonardo da Vinci, and how their complementary worldviews shaped the new age of civilization. So if Zemo sees himself as Machiavelli, who is his silent partner, his Da Vinci, that he's not telling Bucky about? Who's his enlightened inventor, his seeker of the Vitruvian Man? Well, we might get a clue in the next scene.
These are mine, collected by family over the generations.
So, Zemo's rich. In fact, you almost expect to see among this collection of the hottest wheels in the MCU, the V16 Roadster, which was driven by Red Skull in the first Cap film, which Red Skull handed off to whom?
Not a scratch, Doctor, not a scratch.
Yes, Arnim Zola, Red Skull's right-hand man who reappeared in Winter Soldier as an AI algorithm, revealing through the lines of computer code he corrupted S.H.I.E.L.D. into Hydra since the 70s. Marvel Studios loves this guy so much, he even reappeared in Avengers Endgame with Howard and Tony talking about him, and a little visual cameo in the background. And the Endgame screenwriters have said they want to see him come back in a future Marvel title with his robotic android body from the comics. Now, MT and I have been on this Zola train since before the season even began.
We could actually get a Zola cameo.
I was about to say the same thing. I think we're on the Zola train.
Zola was like,
Zola.
Zola. Oh my God.
And back in that first Cap film, Zola joined Red Skull in his Da Vincian obsession with the perfect human form, an obsession that led to Zola's design of his android body for himself, which was a little visual Easter egg in that movie. So if Zemo does have a silent partner, his family's fortune could be rooted in a link to the fortunes of Johann Schmidt and his partner Zola. Now, in one of these cars is Zemo's iconic purple mask from the comics, where he was the son of Baron Heinrich Zemo, a Nazi scientist. His son Helmut Zemo adopts his father's white supremacist views, well, really his Zemo supremacist views, and leads villain groups like the Masters of Evil and later the Thunderbolts. And now Zemo dons this coat with a fur collar, evoking that look from the comics.
So all this time you've been rich?
I'm a baron's son. My family was royalty until your friends destroyed my country.
Your friends destroyed my country. I mean, I know he's talking about the Avengers wrecking Sokovia, but you know, just paired with that butler's cringe at Sam in particular, and then how they laughed up serving them rotten food, and then Zemo's kind of virtue signaling about Marvin Gaye, there's just a lot of red flags there. And then add that to the jab about Sam's incarceration.
You don't know what it's like to be locked in a cell. Oh, that's right, you do.
But yes, referring to Sam's time locked up in the raft in Civil War. And then Zemo finds Bucky's list, with more names visible than when we last saw it, like Jay Weaver could be for John Weaver, a digital asset coordinator for the show. Elle Hudson is a PA on the show. And then Elle Atwood, of course, for Senator Atwood from episode 1. And we learn that this is actually the same exact notebook that Steve Rogers wrote his list in Captain America the Winter Soldier. So he must have given it to Bucky as a way to help Bucky acquaint himself in modern life. But instead, Bucky has to use it to list past wrongs he must right, like he can't move on to new things until he clears those demons. And then Sam reminds us how he actually told Steve to write down Trouble Man, and they debate about Marvin Gaye, and this episode actually came out on Marvin Gaye's birthday. But look at the book that Zemo has behind it. Peter Schellenbaum's Der Nein in der Liebe, translating to The No in Love, Delimitation and Devotion in the Erotic Relationship. It's a relationship psychology book from 1986 that, instead of using psychology terms, it used a lot of allusions to Greek mythology to try to explain it. You know who else was obsessed with mythology? Red Skull, whom Zemo brings up here.
As a young soldier sent to Germany to stop a mad icon, do we want to live in a world full of people like the Red Skull?
Now moving on, there is this really weird moment in the scene with Carly and Mama Donya.
Carly, better come upstairs.
There's not much time. You should be with her now.
Yeah, notice how we never see who is talking to Carly here? Also, we hardly meet Mama Doña despite them casting Veronica Falcon, a talented actress with a large body of work. So what's going on here? Well, this was likely condensed during reshoots. This was new dialogue dubbed over it, and then it was all re-edited after rumors last year that a subplot in this series had to be altered due to similarities with the COVID-19 pandemic. Remember in episode 2, there were mentions of vaccines that they never really followed up on. And then notice later in this episode when Dr. Nagel talks about Doña, again, the camera cuts away, his audio quality shifts a little bit when he says which disease she was suffering from.
But a couple of days ago, she called and asked if I could help someone named Doña Madani. Poor woman has tuberculosis. Typical of overpopulation and displacement camps like that.
So it's looking very likely that there was some disease outbreak subplot in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which explains why the Flag Smashers stole vaccines in particular, why Doña died, and why this new scene later with Dovich puts a hood over Erin Kellerman's head because her hair might have been different during these reshoots. So look folks, if you find any editing confusing in the series, it might just be because they constructed an entirely new storyline, to which I say, you know, you could have just left whatever it was. The more relevant with what we're going through, the better probably. But whatever, I don't know what it was. Still, we do get this detail of Doña carrying a Hamsa pendant. This has spiritual significance to many religions. It's kind of used to ward off the evil eye. Here, the eye has been replaced with a globe, explaining the origin of the Flag Smasher symbol, and that Doña may have been kind of a matriarch to this organization. And then Madripoor, a criminal haven located near Singapore, divided into High Town and Low Town. We actually saw this teased on a postcard in the end credits with Filipino Tagalog translating to One World, One People. And the music that actually plays during their entrance is Filipino rap track Amats by Shanti Dope. Sam has to disguise himself as Conrad Mack, the Smiling Tiger, an actual character in the comics. He's a villain who later became part of the Thunderbolts during the Civil War event. And among all these signs in Low Town is the Princess Bar, a dive visited by Wolverine in the comics when he goes under his Patch Logan alias. And then wall art warning, Power Broker is watching, very Big Brother is watching. And then the monkey face of the logo of the Brass Monkey Saloon, which is another Madripoor location from the comics. We've also seen this face in the end credits with Chinese characters over it translating to gold, corruption, and accomplice. Inside, Sharon Carter sees them and then she sneaks off. And then moments later,
got word from on high. You ain't welcome here.
I have no business with the power broker. But if he insists, he can either come and talk to me.
Sharon Carter could be working for this power broker, but she probably isn't the power broker herself. She just seems like a mobile operative. She's on the street, she's killing people, she's getting out there. She doesn't seem like someone sitting on a throne as Zemo describes the power broker, by the way, using the pronoun he.
Every kingdom needs its king. Let's just pray we stay under his radar. In Madripoor, he's judge, jury, and executioner.
So the power broker is likely some Marvel crime lord we have yet to meet, and my money is on the Mandarin, the true Mandarin, not Trevor Slattery, the one gonna be played by Tony Leung in Shang-Chi, the leader of the 10 Rings crime organization, someone who cares a lot about his reputation, and with a vast network of spies. Zemo has some bad blood with them, which might have come from the deleted scene in Captain America Civil War in which Zemo gasses a bunch of other international arms dealers, which could have included some of the power broker's men. Zemo forces Bucky back into his Winter Soldier role, and notice how the Winter Soldier scream returns, but it doesn't subside this time, it intensifies. And Zemo feeds this berserker violence by throwing a dude at Bucky. This all happens while patrons record it on their phones, meaning the terms of Bucky's pardon, specifically Dr. Rayner's whole second rule about not hurting anyone, are being totally violated here. It's probably gonna justify any lethal force Walker wants to use to catch Bucky and bring him down. And they meet Selby, played by Imelda Corcoran, who played Dr. Goodman in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There are actually a few Selbys in Marvel Comics, like Selby the Mutant, Suzanne Selby from Roxxon. Either way, she gets killed by Sharon's sniper bullet, alerting every nearby assassin. If this feels like something from the John Wick films, maybe because this episode was written by Derek Kolstad, creator of that franchise. Sharon sells famous artwork, including Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait and Claude Monet's Woman with a Parasol, which is supposed to hang in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., which is right across the National Mall from the museum where Cap's exhibit is. So the same way that Sam was shocked to see his valuable that belonged in a museum get taken out and exploited, so too is he here learning that nothing is sacred. So Selby had told him about Dr. Wilfred Nagel, who gets its name from the scientist in the comics who was part of Project Rebirth, which enhanced Isaiah Bradley. Both he and Dr. Erskine have used the alias of Dr. Reinstein in the comics. And notice this line from Sharon, though.
We got a name. Wilfred Nagel.
Nagel works for the power broker.
We need your help, Sharon.
Another sneaky audio dub there. Sharon's line was totally off screen with these awkward edits, so we don't see her face. I suppose they needed a direct link between Nagel and the power broker to set up how Sharon would know how to get this info from these art traders, or maybe some other re-edited COVID subplot residue. Then at the party, Zemo breaks the internet. Then onto the Madripoor shipyard, where there are a bunch of flags. These are for the nation of Madripoor. One of these also appeared on Sharon's plate earlier. And you'll notice Sharon is using the 2013 era phone, the same kind that Nick Fury uses in Winter Soldier, suggesting that she might still be using the same encrypted tech when she's going off-grid as she was using back in those days. So when Dr. Nagel first sees Zemo, notice they exchange this look. It seems like Nagel might have known he was on Zemo's list of past Hydra serum scientists that Zemo said he was hunting down, and that Nagel in this moment knows that he might be donezo. So Nagel explains that he started with Hydra to recreate the serum, but then he worked for the CIA, who had the blood of an American test subject, definitely referring to Isaiah Bradley, and that with that he was able to crack the code.
I did what no other scientist since Erskine was able to do, but mine was going to be different. Mine was going to be subtle, optimized, perfect.
Meanwhile, outside, Sharon goes apeshit on these bounty hunters. There's some great John Wick style stunts here, especially with the knife work, likely done with the CGI blade, which you can spot in a few places, like when the dude takes it out of his arm, but then later it's not in his hand anymore, and there's really no sound effect of it dropping, despite there being tons of other knife sound effects. Because when he pulled it out of his arm, there was just nothing in his hand. They CGI'd that in. And then similarly later, when Sharon maneuvers the knife, for a brief second, it kind of drops a frame and it jumps from one angle to another within a single frame. I'm not pointing this out to criticize. I love seeing this because it's a reminder that, hey, this stunt team was being safe. And kids, you should not play around with knives at home. And then as she wrestles this one dude, there's a tattoo on his arm. This is French, translating to, "We have only scratched the surface a little." So this all ends with Zemo shooting at Nagel, and the lab explodes, scattering Nagel's vials. Now, he had claimed there wasn't any serum in the lab, but the close-ups frame the vials and the flasks. It kind of makes it seem like Zemo or one of the others could have grabbed one of these, whether or not this serum was complete effective serum. So maybe Zemo could end up offering this as a trick to John Walker, which could lead to dangerous side effects and bring him down from the inside. I mean, hey, Sam and Bucky gotta get that shield somehow. I love how director Kari Skogland framed Zemo's mask similar to the way Christopher Nolan framed his opening shot of the Joker in The Dark Knight, a sinister pose framing the mask in the gunslinger position right before the Black Cat draws it like a weapon by putting it on his face. And then Bucky ruins this person's day. And then Zemo rolls up in another sweet ride.
You're not gonna move your seat up, are you?
No.
Of course, a callback to Winter Soldier.
Can you move your seat up?
No. And then Sharon shadily tells her driver,
Got a big problem. Actually, a couple of them. I'll tell you in the car. Let's go.
yeah, I do think she is working for the power broker, and her couple problems are that Nagel is dead and that some of his vials may have been taken. Like maybe in her mind, she led these guys here so that they could use Nagel to find the Flag Smashers and put them down, not kill Nagel and destroy all their product. Then in Latvia, Zemo says,
I heard what became of Sokovia. Cannibalized by its neighbors, erased from the map.
So Sokovia is located in Eastern Europe, and maybe part of its redrawn map could include the nation of Latveria, also in Eastern Europe, home to Victor Von Doom. Kevin Feige confirmed that we have a Fantastic Four movie in the works sometime in the next few years. Zemo also mentions the Sokovia Memorial, which trailer footage shows him visiting at some point in the series. And then Bucky follows a trail of Kamoyo beads, the vibranium tech used by the people of Wakanda, leading Bucky to AO. So AO is the second in command of the Dora Milaje, right under Okoye. She was actually the first Dora Milaje that we met back in Civil War, and she returned in Black Panther and in Infinity War. She was last seen fighting Corvus Glaive, protecting Shuri and Vision. And I love how her cameo comes in with this music of the Wakandan drums and the African female singing group chanting that Ryan Coogler and Ludwig Göransson uses the Dora Milaje warrior theme. Now, as Sam warned earlier this episode, Wakanda is not gonna let it go that Zemo killed King T'Chaka, and are probably not too happy about his release. I also speculated inside Marvel that this whole Black Panther crossover could shed light on the longtime mystery ingredient to Erskine's serum formula, an ingredient that I think could have been derived from the Wakandan heart-shaped herb. Now, I do assume it's a bit too early to learn what Marvel's plans are for Black Panther 2 after Chadwick Boseman's passing, so I don't think we're gonna hear any references to T'Challa in the show. But at the very least, Bucky's role as the White Wolf of Wakanda could still be key to his future. And this is a breakdown of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 4. Okay, we open in Wakanda 6 years ago. Now, this series is set 6 months after Endgame, roughly April 2024. 6 years prior to that would be April 2018, which would be just a few weeks before Thanos' forces arrived and T'Challa gave Bucky his new vibranium arm. So Bucky really had no time to enjoy his freedom before being dragged back into battle, which is why he's still not really okay in this series. The Dora Milaje Io does this far outside the city, past a waterfall that could be part of the Warrior Falls waterways, all to keep Bucky away from the crowded areas of the country. And Io repeats the Russian Hydra Winter Soldier activation code, referenced by Zemo last episode and appearing in every episode's closing credits. Actually, this episode, Io actress Florence Kusumba appears right beside it, her name translating from Wakandan, signaling her crucial role in helping Bucky overcome these haunting words. Now, ever since Civil War, fans have looked into these words for deeper metaphorical meaning, like homecoming could be for Spider-Man Homecoming, or freight car could be the train car that Bucky fell from. Though the writers of that movie said that they chose those words because they sounded melodic and menacing in Russian. But here we do get a new interesting meaning with the words, because some of them trigger specific memories for Bucky. Furnace brings up the Hydra kernel with the Red Book, and when Zemo used that same book to activate Bucky in Berlin, all while Bucky's blood boils in rage over that brainwashing. We see a flashback on Bucky's attack on Howard and Maria Stark, specifically when he choked Maria, and then the word benign comes in with Bucky trying to claw out Tony's arc reactor in the Civil War fight right before Tony blasts off his arm, both men trying to render each other benign and neutralize their primary weapons. But the shift comes in with the word homecoming, which shows the briefest flash of Bucky's final fight in Captain America Winter Soldier when Steve told him,
"'Cause I'm with you to the end of the line."
That was the moment Steve broke through to his old buddy and began the long road to bringing him home. And with that, the Winter Soldier music that has wailed through this struggle fades away, giving way to just some simple piano chords. And Ayo tells him, "You are free," and Bucky can't even believe it. He has to look up at her to make sure she just said that, and she repeats, "You're free." And only then can this man finally breathe freely. One of my favorite scenes in the MCU ever. But back in Latvia, Io says,
"The Winter Soldier programming was removed from you like a rotten fur."
Using the analogy of shaving matted fur from a feral canine, reflecting their nickname for Bucky as the White Wolf. They mention Shuri and King T'Chaka, and Bucky says in Wakandan, yeah, Bucky can speak Wakandan. Add that to the list of English, Russian, Romanian, and Japanese. And here, by calling Zemo a means to an end, he echoes Zemo's own Machiavellian view, where the ends justify the means and loyalty to tactical allies is not permanent. Back inside, Zemo questions the very notion of super soldiers.
It was that warped aspiration that led to Nazis, to Ultron, to the Avengers.
Hey, those are friends you're talking about.
The Avengers, not the Nazis.
Yeah, I love how Bucky had to clear that up. But then Zemo says this.
The desire to become a superhuman cannot be separated from supremacist ideals.
Yeah, in truth, the history of American superhero comics from the 1930s, Superman by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Captain America by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, were attempts to reframe the idea of a Superman with American virtues and patriotic colors as a response to Nazi propaganda of white supremacy, inspired by philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, in German, Superman. The belief that some men can just be superior enough that they're unbound by the laws of society, which is essentially how Johann Schmidt Red Skull saw himself. And as they discuss this whole Nazi history and the American responses created by Jewish writers, Zemo's window is segmented in the shapes of the Star of David. But the important words that Zemo says are the desire to become a superhuman. Sam doesn't want the serum, Bucky didn't want it, Steve Rogers arguably didn't really know what it was, but John Walker, he wants it. And that is the problem. Now Bucky says,
"The serum never corrupted Steve."
Touché. But there has never been another Steve Rogers, has there?
Now Sam might just be conceding that Steve was surely one of a kind, but Sam did meet a second Steve, the old Steve who gave him that shield after previous Steve disappeared in the past. Now it's still unclear how much society knows about old Cap, like he wasn't mentioned in the museum exhibit recap of the Endgame events, and Torres thinks Cap is living on the moon. Whatever's going on here, Sam knows more than he is telling us about that old guy. Zemo pulls out some Turkish delights.
Turkish delight. Irresistible.
He uses these later to bribe the refugee kids for info similar to the White Witch using Turkish delights on Edmund in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. By the way, if you have not had a Turkish delight, trust me, they are very resistible. Blah. Now, the Flag Smashers react to the news of Carly's terrorism last episode.
The GRC formally began drafting legislation known as the Patch Act, which would seek to restore traditional border regulations and fast-track the return to normalcy.
Something is off about this scene. This weird sounding voiceover that's loud enough to be heard by everyone, but just coming off of whose phone? There's this overhead shot of Carly standing far away from everyone else, and then cut to an immediate close-up where she's just sitting right among them, and then this insert of a phone with just a generic news B-roll, no news outlet logo. Yeah, like last episode, I think this is another Flag Smasher scene that just looks super re-edited, which I theorize could be due to a virus-related subplot with the Flag Smashers that had to be removed. Actually, later in the episode, there is a similar moment with Carly's big line.
We separate them, and then we kill Captain America.
Sure, it's not unusual to show reaction shots while other people are talking. That's basic editing. Especially for Nico, who grew up as a Cap fan and will soon die ironically by the Cap shield. But to just use full coverage for this big dramatic line suggests that something might have been reworked in this scene. It's interesting how they've been avoiding mentioning, I don't know how Mama Danya died, which apparently last episode, according to Dr. Nagel, was tuberculosis, but that was clearly an awkwardly jammed in ADR line in that scene. So yeah, I have a video coming out soon explaining exactly what was probably changed and what this mystery storyline probably was. Zemo sings Baba Black Sheep to the kids, and then he tells them,
Turkish delight was always my son's favorite.
Zemo lost his family in the Battle of Sokovia, and similarly, Bucky's friend Mr. Nakajima recalled his son's favorite dessert. These Avengers keep getting people's sons killed. Now, Bucky's pissed at Zemo for playing coy, and Sam says,
He's just going to extort you into that stupid head tilt thing.
I love how Zemo untilts his head right after that. Now, Sam calls Sharon Carter over in Madripoor, and the graffiti behind her shows the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. This is all art by Jisor. That is an actual Instagram handle for a real Atlanta artist, and this was all shot in Atlanta's Krog Street Tunnel. Sharon tells him,
Power broker went apeshit when he heard about Nagel. He wants the serum back. You killed the golden goose. Madripoor's about to get real nasty.
So yeah, Sharon Carter is not herself the power broker, but she might be working for him. Like, notice how she gives nods to each of these guards. She's involved in some crime organization behind her personal art dealings, which, by the way, we crunched the numbers there. All that art would add up to a value of over $500 million. She's not just one person, she's part of a network. Actually, in the past week, Marvel unveiled this awesome promo website, exploremadripoor.com, with wanted posters for characters with references to the comic issues they first appeared. Actually, previously on the site, you could see ships with names like Mystique and references to Shang-Chi, reportedly, but then those images were quickly taken down. I don't know if this Shang-Chi report is legit. It does support my theory that the power broker could be connected to the Mandarin, or his organization, the Ten Rings. They hide the serum at the grave of Nico's grandfather, Lukas Kovacic, who served with Allied forces in World War II, making Nico grow up a huge fan of Captain America and making it tragically ironic that Cap shield is what ends his life. Carly says,
That shield is a monument to a bygone era, a reminder of all the people history just left out. If anything, that shield should be destroyed.
You know, Sam suggested the same thing last episode.
Maybe I shouldn't have put it in a museum. Maybe I should have destroyed it.
With him echoing a lot of Flag Smasher talking points this episode, I think it's likely that these two are going to partner up. Now, when Walker and Hoskins show up, they get the attention of some nearby onlookers who take pictures. A reminder that everything Walker says and does in public will be recorded. Notice how Walker has not shaved, and that scruff just grows more and more until it fills in the final scene. So this guy is going rogue, and he is unhinged. Wyatt Russell does such a good job this episode expressing it with all these subtle physical tics, like when he touches his forehead again and again, as if suffering from a chronic migraine. And then in the scene where the girl leads him to the funeral, watch Walker in the background. Right before we cut to a new scene, he looks down and jerks his head to the side right before the cut. Now, at the funeral, there are a lot of child actors, and you know what that means. A lot of kids looking creepily into the camera lens. Roll the clip.
I was alone. Until Mama Danya. Like a lot of you here, Mama Danya saved me.
Actually, Turkish Delight Girl did it earlier.
Excuse me.
Carly holds Donya's Hamsa pendant, a symbol of spiritual significance to many religions. Normally it has an eye, but here it has a world showing the origin of the Flag Smasher logo. But then a scramble, and Zemo crushes the serum vials. Actually, director Kari Skogland cuts in from below angles of that blue serum spilling everywhere, swapping in transparent plexiglass for the surface. It's a cool visual trick that's used a lot in Breaking Bad to show the blue meth from below. But Walker finds the last unbroken vial. Ah, that creepy head tilt and that music, as if Walker's got his own super soldier will. Now Walker threatens Sam to turn Zemo over.
How do you want the rest of this conversation to go, Sam, huh? Yeah. Should I put down the shield? Make it fair?
Yeah, look at Hoskins' side eye there. Like, motherfucker's gonna get me killed. And then when he sets down the shield and arises, hidden in the background, no one saw this sneaky Dora Milaje. Walker insults them by calling their vibranium spears pointy sticks and questioning their jurisdiction as if he has any.
The Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be.
I love this fight. There's lots of amazing teamwork among the Dora Milaje. First, Io knocks Walker into the spear that was already thrown by the first one, and then Io passes that first one her spear and pulling out the other one's wedge spear. Trading spears! Oh, by the way, trading spears is also what Brittany's dad has been doing with the courts. Her money is hers. Hashtag free Brittany. Now, when Sam intervenes, the vibranium spear mixes with the sound of a panther growl. And then Walker gets pinned with his shield, and Io deactivates Bucky's vibranium arm by hitting these pressure points.
Bust damn you, James.
A little shout out to Bast, the Wakandan panther deity. And when Bucky pops it back on, it emits a purple glow, the color Shuri's Black Panther tech glows when it transmits kinetic energy. Also, there's a bit of a hexagonal pattern there, like everything in Shuri's lab. It's not Mephisto, shut up. And then Bucky swings his arm around to reload his arm, just like he did in Captain America Winter Soldier. Dora Milaje kickflips the shield to her arm, Cap's big move from the elevator in Captain America Winter Soldier, and a move Taskmaster will do in Black Widow. Could Taskmaster be a Wakandan? No, well, maybe. I just think you can do this if you really know your way around vibranium. And Walker wallows in defeat.
They weren't even super soldiers.
Composer Henry Jackman brings back the music from Civil War during Cap and Tony's final fight. Sam says Zemo pulled an El Chapo, referencing the Mexican crime boss who tunneled out of prison via a bathroom escape hatch. And Hoskins says about the serum,
power just makes a person more of themselves, right?
Echoing the words of Dr. Erskine, who told Steve Rogers that the serum amplifies whatever character traits that the person has inside. And after going home to change into Sam's Falcon suit and Bucky's fighting leather, they confront Carly, who says that she doesn't want to kill them because...
You're not hiding behind a shield.
And then moments later, Walker enters, hiding behind his shield, gun out. It's actually similar to Steve's entrance with the Howling Commandos in the first Cap film. Now, when Sharon calls, notice she has a bloody lip with scars on her knuckles. Now, I figured these were from her scuffle in the shipyard last episode, but it didn't look like she had that lip in the scene earlier. She did say Madripoor was about to get nasty. She might have had to endure the Power Broker's wrath for letting Nagel get killed. Walker wedges the shield in the wall, still adjusting to his new super soldier strength now that he's juiced up. And notice how he twitches. This guy is losing control over his own body. Walker growls,
"What's with all the knives?"
Maybe a callback to Howard Stark's line in the first Cap film.
Hydra's not gonna attack you with a pocket knife.
Walker flings a knife off his shield, nearly killing Bucky, who grabs it midair, similar to Walker's careless shield tosses near Bucky's head in episode 2. But Bucky uses this knife to do his cool little knife flip move that he also did in Winter Soldier. Meanwhile, Hoskins cuts himself free from a room with dripping shower heads of doom, just in time to save Walker from Carly, but he gets punched into a column, killing him. Ugh. Now, in the comics, the killing of Walker's parents by the Watchdogs causes his mental break. But here, it is the loss of his best friend. And you can see a bit of blood trickles from above his ear, as if he's had some kind of head wound, maybe even concussed. Walker jumps through the window to the street below, a reversal of Cap's big jump up through the window in Civil War, reflecting Walker's moral descent. And Nico pleads for his life, but Walker brings that shield down into the guy's chest. The same move Cap did to finish the fight against Iron Man in Civil War. But whereas Cap delivered just one blow to Tony's chest to depower his armor and spare Tony's life, Walker smashes it into Nico's chest again and again, True savage overkill. And it is heartbreaking to see Nico, a childhood Cap fan, now screaming in terror, framed with this same symbol bearing down on him until the whole thing eclipses his face in the frame. And that is the last time we see Nico's face when he is alive. Now, this is taking place in Riga, Latvia. Actually, that statue face with the 3 stars in the credits every episode, that's of the Freedom Monument in the city of Riga. However, they didn't shoot this scene in Latvia. They shot it in Prague. That nearby statue is that of Josef Jungmann, Czech poet and linguist who actually created the modern Czech language. But Nico dies on a nearby platform that was constructed as a set piece, and it reads, "God bless Latvia," which is probably built so they wouldn't piss off local Prague city officials by beating a dude to death on a beloved monument. Which, yeah, this is horrific. This episode is titled "The Whole World is Watching," a chant that we have heard with many BLM protests in the past year. And Walker getting recorded is a definite nod to the countless recordings of police brutality. Last episode actually opened with Walker telling police not to give their suspect a second to breathe. And these recordings of Walker are everything, because we know from Cap's exhibit that street-level imagery can get immortalized. That photo of him using the car door as a shield in his exhibit was actually, if you go back to that first Cap film, snapped by a photographer in the background, like all these photographers now. And it is these onlookers whose Walker's focus goes to, not even aware of what they're staring at, until we end on the final shocking reveal, the Captain America shield covered in blood. Honestly, more blood than MCU titles really ever typically show. But the even scarier hidden detail in the shot, look at Walker's other hand. It continues to twitch as we cut to black. His inner demons are now fully in control. And this is a breakdown of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 5, Truth. So we open on John Walker mid-sprint, just like how Captain America the Winter Soldier opens for Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers in the middle of their runs. Except this Cap is running from his problems, not interested in making friends. But listen to the music. Composer Henry Jackman recalls his music from Captain America Civil War. You also hear this leitmotif later. This whole fight mirrors that 2-on-1 fight that ended that film, in which Bucky teams up to take down a rival who is filled with rage over a dead loved one. Now, Sam's focus goes to the blood still on the shield.
John.
Yeah, notice that vibranium hums, a sound effect they often do with the shield to indicate its kind of weird mystical qualities, but here it's boosted up as if Steve's spirit is dismayed at these stains. Now Bucky tries to calm John.
Don't go down that road. Believe me, it doesn't end well.
I'm not like you.
Yeah, notice how Bucky just takes this in, biting his tongue, letting the other two talk for a bit, and he only speaks up once more in the last line spoken right before punches are thrown.
You don't want to do this.
Yeah, we do.
But we gotta break down this fight move by move because everything is amazing in it. Early on, Bucky grapples with Walker and goes for his gun, smartly disarming him as soon as possible, and he knocks that gun loose, but in response, Walker, in slow motion, raises the shield to bring it down on Bucky's head, just like he did to Nico, so we're freaking out. But Sam jumps in to save Bucky, and that scary moment happens again at the end of the battle, when Walker brings that shield down on Sam this time until Bucky returns the favor. I love the way Sam uses his wings in this fight, first using one to slap that shield out of Walker's left hand before he catches it with his right, and then later Sam backspins on his wings to trip Walker. And when Walker throws the shield at Bucky, knocks him off his feet, Bucky catches the shield and briefly wields it. If you think about it, every time on the series when John Walker flings something at Bucky, Bucky always catches it. Walker throws Bucky, smashes his vibranium arm, causing it to glitch briefly, though it appears to recover shortly after. Sam tries to tether the shield, similar to how Peter Parker webbed the shield in Civil War out of Cap's hands, but it doesn't work. Walker pins him, rips off his wings, and they restrain Walker to try to pull the shield off his arm, similar to the Avengers dogpiling on Thanos to remove the Infinity Gauntlet, until inevitably, using the force of Sam's jetpack, they freaking break his arm. Ugh. If you think about it though, Steve Rogers' arm was also broken as he fought Thanos in Endgame. Remember there was that close-up where he tightened the shield strap as a tourniquet. So in that way, Steve fused the shield with himself to make himself whole, whereas Walker breaks himself over his attachment to that shield. I mean, throughout the MCU, one of the best things about this shield is the way it's been used in collabs. And here is another collab for those books. Now, Now, Bucky drops the shield for Sam, another mirror of the way Cap dropped the shield for Tony in Civil War. And as he does this, he is bathed in these beams of sunlight, almost as if getting Steve's blessing to return his spiritual symbol to its rightful place. And right on that drop, a little glimmer of light reflects off the shield. And as Bucky walks off, listen again to the music. Yeah, the composer is bringing back the end of the line music that he composed for Captain America Winter Soldier. That was the moment when Cap dropped the shield to show his friendship to Bucky.
I'm not gonna fight you. You're my friend.
Later on, Torres tells Bucky,
"Hey, you got your sleeve back."
He's calling back Bucky tearing off his sleeve before that dumb jump out of the plane in episode 2. And Sam tells Torres to take these broken wings.
Wait, yo, you forgot the wings.
Keep them.
Yes, Joaquin Torres does become a version of the Falcon in the comics when Sam becomes Captain America. So we could be looking at the origin for New Falcon. I mean, Sam's line here does feel a bit like Tony's moment with that pre-recast Rhodey in Iron Man.
Next time, baby.
More like next time, boom, you're looking for this. Walker goes on trial before a council. You can see the flags for the U.S. Army, U.S. Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. So I assume this is some combination of the Joint Chiefs, maybe with a chairman of the Senate Armed Forces Committee, because he's a senator, they're military people. Maybe this is a government body representing the U.S. delegation to the GRC. Look, it's post-blip. Who knows how government works? Then Walker goes, Kavanaugh.
I lived my life by your mandates. I dedicated my life to your mandates.
And then a very cold...
You built me.
Yeah, through Walker's rage, we are given a clearer reference point for Isaiah Bradley, who was another super soldier who was just following orders, but in his case, he was not allowed to walk free. So what does John Walker have to complain about? Then Walker is approached by cameo alert!
Little cameo.
Seinfeld and Veep star Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. So you can just call me Val, but don't call me Val. Just keep it in your head.
Yes, Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is a longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in the Marvel Comics, often associated with Nick Fury. She goes by Agent 14, and at another point, Madam Hydra, when she joins Hydra, but that was really a short-lived mission when she was actually part of the Leviathan, and she was betraying Hydra, undermining them. Folks, de Fontaine is a lesser-known figure, and a lot of folks right now are jumping on her being Madam Hydra, confirmed! But that arc was really just a small part of her run. Like, she plays a big role in Secret Invasion, replaced by a Skrull who really kicks off Nick Fury's initial suspicions. She works on a FemForce team with Sharon Carter. You could jump to the conclusion that she is the power broker the show has been hinting at, though I think it would be a bit weird to introduce this big cameo right now, but then wait to doubly confirm her as the power broker, a character who is referred to with male pronouns. I mean, she may just represent whatever faction of Hydra is left after they were hunted down and routed. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus seems to be playing it with the same kind of wry humor that Gary Shandling played Hydra-loyal Senator Stern.
I would have killed the bastard too. I mean, you would have been doing him a favor if you'd taken out the whole lot.
Yeah, de Fontaine sounds like she's part of some shadowy government agency, one without oversight, without a public face, which, yeah, sounds a lot like what Nick Fury initially was doing with S.H.I.E.L.D. And Hydra did corrupt S.H.I.E.L.D., so it is plausible that she could be heading up a secret division of Hydra that's still active somewhere, perpetuated by Zola's algorithm, which could mean Empty in my Zola handcar could still arrive at the station. But I don't know, it seems like Marvel just pulled a long-time lesser-known comics operative and plans to do something entirely new with her. So it's not about her history, it's about the plan.
You did the right thing. Taking the serum. Yeah, of course I know about that. It has made you very, very valuable to certain people.
Which certain people? Well, notice that indigo streak in her hair. I think de Fontaine could be at least partly inspired by high-ranking S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Victoria Hand, in the comics, deputy director of the Thunderbolts Initiative during the Dark Reign. Now, Victoria Hand already appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which Kevin Feige has been kinda indicating ain't really MCU canon, but since we already saw that character in a Marvel TV show, maybe they're pulling a different female S.H.I.E.L.D. operative from Marvel Comics. Either way, it's not just the hair, it's the fact that she values Walker because he took the serum, and she knows government secrets, and the Dora Milaje are taking Zemo to the Raft prison. Remember that? That was a facility from Captain America Civil War, overseen by Thaddeus Ross, whose name appears in the end credits of the show associated with the Enhanced Humans Act. And we know from the first Hulk film that Ross was deeply interested in rebooting the Super Soldier program. DeFontaine could work for Ross, recruiting super anti-heroes on a team named after Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, the Thunderbolts, the anti-hero team in the comics initially headed up by Zemo. I just won't be surprised if this season ends with Zemo on the raft, maybe John Walker in the cell next to him, as DeFontaine strolls past them, offering them a chance for redemption through the Thunderbolts initiative, where they can join forces with other forgotten Marvel villains, like Ghost, like Agatha Harkness. Don't tell me you don't want to see Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Catherine Hahn in a scene together. So Zemo visits the Sokovian Memorial that he mentioned in episode 3. This is one honoring the victims of the Battle of Sokovia and Age of Ultron, which includes Zemo's family. Actually, that lake behind it looks like one formed by the runoff from the upended terrain as the city was lifted, and Zemo's music from Civil War returns here. Now, this statue has a large Sokovian eagle on it, with a base showing Russian letters. That last word translates to Sokovia, I think. Now, interestingly, in the December trailer, this shot included a ton of flowers, notes, and flags at the base of the statue, and was not yet surrounded by a wall of names or have a paved surface. I get those other changes, but why remove the flowers? Well, perhaps the flowers were laid for more recent Sokovian victims of a global pandemic, and whatever that removed virus subplot was. Now, they would have changed that before December, but maybe they didn't get around to updating this shot in particular yet. Now, Bucky holds himself to rule number 2 by not harming Zemo, handing him over to the Dora Milaje.
We will take him to the raft, where he will live out his days.
And I like how they come and go in that Wakandan Talon fighter that we saw in Black Panther. So Sam revisits Eli Bradley, future Young Avenger Patriot, and his grandfather Isaiah Bradley. He carries the shield once more in that art case that Steve had it in Endgame, a nod to his sketching hobby. Isaiah cites the Red Tails, the famous 332, referring to the 332nd Tuskegee Airmen who fought in World War II. But as the scene goes on, it is a heartbreaking and challenging scene in which he shares more about his own tragic history.
A handful of us got shot up with different versions of that serum. They tell us it's tetanus.
So this episode gets its title, Truth, from the comic series Truth, Red, White, and Black, which explores Isaiah Bradley's erased history as the Black Captain America. And with this tetanus line, sounds like this show is referencing the horrific Tuskegee experiments, in which the government promised Black syphilis patients free healthcare, but actually just gave them placebos and let them die. Isaiah goes on to talk about his missions during World War II.
A couple of the boys get captured on a mission. I heard the brass talking about blowing the POW camp to hell to hide the evidence. And I brought them boys back.
Yeah, think about it. This mirrors Steve Rogers' rescue mission in that first Cap film when he freed hundreds of POWs that were written off as dead pretty much. But instead of the heroic greeting that Steve got, Isaiah was freaking tortured and imprisoned for 30 years. Isaiah talks about his eventual escape.
There was a nurse. She took pity on me. Wrote up some fake reports, something. She had me declared dead.
Actually, we might have seen that fake death report for Isaiah Bradley in the end credit sequence. So Sam goes back to Louisiana. He helps fix the family boat with some help from Bucky, who brings new gear designed by the Wakandans. And we only get a tiny glimpse as Sam opens it at the end of the episode. It's kind of kept a mystery, Pulp Fiction style. I'm guessing we're going to see new vibranium wings and a color scheme and functionality that incorporate the shield so that Sam can feel comfortable carrying it without feeling like he has to live up to Cap. In fact, I think that could be the deeper meaning of this line.
Why didn't you use the metal arm?
Well, I don't always think of it immediately. I'm right-handed.
Yeah, the way Bucky doesn't have to think about his arm, Sam doesn't want to have to think about carrying the shield. So Sharon Carter gives a call to Batroc.
Oh, please, if it weren't for me, you'd still be rotting away in that Algerian prison. I can give you double this time.
Now, MT speaks a bit of French and was able to translate Batroc's rant as saying that he lost his team on the last mission and that he would never work for Sharon again. Hey, thanks, MT. But this confirms that Batroc's mission in episode 1 was, in fact, orchestrated by Sharon Carter and her criminal operation in Madripoor. Now, again, I would be surprised if Sharon is revealed to be the power broker herself. Not just because of the pronouns, but because Zemo knew the power broker before he was imprisoned in Civil War, before Sharon broke bad. And really, Sharon seems like too much of a foot soldier for a godlike crime boss with spooky murals. Still, I do think she is part of a criminal organization, maybe working for the power broker, maybe trying to undermine him, and maybe she's sending Batroc in to help the Flag Smashers in their mission against the GRC so that Batroc can gain their trust and then lure them back to Sharon and the power broker. But check out this painting in her art collection. This is the Raft of the Medusa. It's a French romantic painting depicting the infamous wreckage of the French naval frigate Le Medusa. I don't know, leave that to MT to get that right. This is a real ship in history that ran aground and then had a super incompetent captain that led the crew to starve and get super dehydrated and start eating each other. So with all the focus on it here, maybe Sharon actually has plans to stage a mutiny on her crime boss, the power broker, seeing him as a failure to run a tight ship in Madripoor. So Bucky wakes up to see AJ and Cass playing with the shield. I love that Bucky now sleeps on the couch instead of on the floor. Definitely a sign of improvement. And they play some catch.
Feels weird.
Sam is calling back his words to Steve when he first picked up the shield in Endgame.
How does it feel? Like it's someone else's.
Now notice when Sam catches the shield, he braces and recoils with its momentum, whereas Bucky just kind of catches it with a little recoil. Not only is Bucky stronger with his arm and the serum, but this shield is also an awkward fit for Sam still, with a heavier historical weight based off of the dark truths that Isaiah Bradley left him with. But then Bucky reveals,
When Steve told me what he was planning, I don't think either of us really understood what it felt like for the black man to be handed the shield.
yeah, this confirms that Bucky and Steve did talk over that shield succession off screen during Endgame. But also, interestingly, that old Cap remembered that plan throughout his entire alternate life before rejoining them. Bucky brings back up Steve's notebook, and Sam says,
Steve is gone. And this might be a surprise, but it doesn't matter what Steve thought.
so does gone mean dead, retired, returned to another timeline, or on the moon like Torres thinks? I mean, just show us a freaking headstone for the old man and leave the door open to younger Cap in the multiverse and we'll be done with it. Sam tells Bucky that he has to be of service to his victims. That's a true way to make amends, probably setting up Bucky to return to old Mr. Nakajima and tell him the truth about his son next episode. And then Sam's looking hot as he's working out with that shield.
All day, man.
Uncle Sam!
All day could be a reference to Cap's catchphrase, I could do this all day. And his nephews calling him Uncle Sam again reflects Sam's growing comfort with bearing these patriotic colors. Meanwhile, the Flag Smashers grow their forces in Tompkins Square Park in New York, somehow getting into the US despite being highly sought after terrorists, whatever. Batroc hooks them up with some weaponry, and their new recruits disrupt a meeting with the GRC who are trying to vote on the Patch Act, which was told to us in a news report on WHIH. And presumably it'll be here in New York that all these warring parties will meet, including Sharon Carter, whom we see in promo footage, and John Walker with his new homemade shield. He actually hammers that together in this episode's post-credit scene. Now, actually, another big MCU title ends the same way, with credits that just go to black and you hear the clanging of a hammer. Avengers Endgame. These were, of course, a nod to Tony Stark hammering in the cave with the rocks and scraps in the first Iron Man. And this scene is a reference to that as well in Walker's man cave. Now here, Walker melts down the Congressional Medal of Honor that we actually saw him holding this earlier. And he uses this to fuse together the metal of the shield. Now, while I doubt this shield is made of vibranium or anything stronger, by being made of the military metals, it does bear a deeper, more personal significance for Walker. We heard him repeat throughout this episode,
Captain America. I am Captain America.
And this man's gonna be Captain America in his own mind, even if he has to cosplay to do it. But my favorite detail of this final shot is once again hidden in his hands. As he spray paints that metal ring, he coats his thumb in a dark red, not at all caring about the blood red stains that he gets on his hands. This is a breakdown of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 6, the finale, One World, One People. We open on the Flag Smashers' disruption of the GRC vote. Actually, Carly's voiceover here is actually the same line that she spoke in Latvia last episode.
They're not going to stop. Not unless we make them. It's time.
Now, Erin Kellyman was more emotional then. Now they use an alternate take where she sounded more resolute and firm. Then a little moment with Bucky that I loved.
Sergeant Barnes.
Nice, this officer respects Bucky's service and his rank, telling us that some people in this world really do learn from the history in Cap's Smithsonian exhibit, making it an even bigger deal when Isaiah's history will later become restored. Sharon Carter uses the same mesh face mask that Natasha used in Winter Soldier. It also appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, while you could see Sharon's suspicious behavior in the post-credit scene as a setup for Secret Invasion, this mask to me signals that she herself is probably not going to be a Skrull, because then she wouldn't really need that kind of cloaking tech, right? But then again, apparently no one cares about Sharon's past history, so whatever. But notice how the Flag Smashers use these smoke grenades that glow green, and then Sharon talks about her deadly mercury vapor. She says, among other things, that she uses on that Flag Smasher that emits a green smoke. And then those locks that they use on the truck doors have 8 claws, and they're strong. They take several strikes of Bucky's vibranium arm to break. Remember, Batroc supplied this gear courtesy of Sharon after she hired him. And Sharon called someone on the phone in the post-credit scene.
Super soldiers might be off the menu, but we're about to have full access to government secrets, prototype weapons, you name it.
Thinking one of Sharon's trading partners and the source of this tech could be Oscorp. Normally, I'm hesitant to lean on Spider-Man villains like Green Goblin, Norman Osborn in my MCU theories, since all those are Sony properties, and Marvel can really only do so much with them in non-Spider-Man titles, but Sony did just sign a deal with Disney Plus that makes that kind of future IP sharing a bit more likely. And by something for everyone, Sharon might mean a team of weapons tech manufacturers known for green glowing grenades, a weapon used by Green Goblin, and 8 armed reinforced metal gear that you could see someone like Doc Ock putting together. And this comes within a week of Alfred Molina talking about his role as Doc Ock in Spider-Man No Way Home. So Sam Wilson swoops in with his new suit. Yeah, now the music here evokes the Steve Rogers Cap theme, but it is a variant that is unique to Sam. This suit's largely white design reflects Sam's look in the comics when he becomes Cap, including the half cowl. That shield magnetically latches to his back like it did with Steve. And Sam being in white here creates an interesting contrast with US Agent John Walker.
It's the same, but black.
Sam as a black man in a role historically seen as a white man. Walker as a white man now donning the archetypal black hat. But Sam does not leave us guessing.
I'm sorry, wait, who are you?
Captain America.
I thought Captain America was on the moon.
Yeah, the guy calls back Torres' conspiracy theory that Steve Rogers was on the moon. This series never gave us an answer as to what happened with old Cap from Endgame, kind of treated the mystery as more of a joke, because I guess these Disney Plus shows can only do so much MCU world building. But for now, I'm just gonna go with Cap is in space with Nick Fury. So as the GRC diplomats are evacuated, listen to this voice blaring over the PA system.
Groups 1 and 2 will leave from secure vehicles in the basement. Group 3 will leave via air support on the roof.
Maybe don't announce this while terrorists have infiltrated the freaking building. Like, imagine if that happened at the Capitol. Actually, maybe don't mentally compare what the Flag Smashers are doing to January 6th. Just don't. A Flag Smasher hands Bucky a phone with Carly calling via that Flag Smashers app, the app that Bucky will later use to trap the Flag Smashers. They must have thought a 106-year-old man couldn't work the app. They thought wrong. Carly asks Bucky,
I'm fighting for something bigger than myself. Have you ever been able to say the same?
You don't think I ever fought for something bigger than myself? That's all I ever tried to do. And I failed twice.
Yeah, Bucky fought freaking Thanos, you dummy! His 2 losses may refer to his losses in Infinity War and in World War II, you could argue, though I don't really know if it's fair to say he lost that. Really, every fight this dude fights has been over something bigger than himself. Sam subdues Batroc by kick-flipping the shield and then tossing it out the window first to break it, before swooping back out to catch it. This is also kind of how he had to enter the building, by smashing the window with the shield first. See, if those Wakandans had just given him a vibranium head covering instead of leaving his scalp weirdly exposed, he wouldn't have to worry about smashing through the glass himself. He's made of vibranium at that point. Sam uses Red Wing to scan the GRC hostages, and on the screen you can see her name, Ayla Perez. She has a background in the Philippine Air Force with experience flying both Apache and Chinook helicopters. Chinook helicopters are twin rotors that tell Sam that Perez has experience with multiple types of helicopters and that he can trust her to climb into that seat and pull it out of a dive, even though that would probably be very difficult for anyone other than Tom Cruise to do. Sam saves the NYPD pilots, shielding one with his wings and the cap shield on top, showing how the Wakandans designed this to be a perfect interlocking vibranium seal. John Walker shows up with his cosplay shield, his Medal of Honor welded on the inside. Yeah, notice how this shield has a lighter, more tinny sound than the deeper, mystical hum of the vibranium.
John.
As Bucky falls into the construction pit, he screams, echoing his scream as he fell from the train in the first Cap film, the scream that inspired his Winter Soldier wail, which we have not heard on this show since his Wakandan campfire going clear moment. And since he is no longer haunted, Bucky now sticks the superhero landing. So Carly tries to murder hostages, putting Walker at this crossroads. Notice composer Henry Jackman brings back his theme from Civil War here to underline Walker's come to Jesus moment, choosing to save the hostages instead of seeking revenge on Carly. Though I should say, after what he did in episodes 4 and 5 for John Walker, it's not really a come to Jesus as it is Jesus actually pulling away his mesh face mask to reveal it's Mephisto underneath. That guy's going to hell. But Walker's choice is emphasized by what he does let drop his cosplay shield. It's beaten and limp. But when the truck goes loose again, it's the true shield that lifts it, framing the shield like a rising sun, saving these lives. An inverse of the way John Walker framed it, eclipsing Nico and ending his life. Sam uses his drones for a boost similar to Iron Man's drones in Spider-Man Homecoming. Really, with this suit, Sam is truly a fusion of Captain America and Iron Man with the vibranium tech of Black Panther. An onlooker watches this calling him Black Falcon, like the kid in Baltimore in episode 2. Bucky catches a rebarb spear. I love how this dude catches pretty much everything hurled at him on this show. Walker with the shield on the truck, the knife in episode 4, the shield again in the fight last episode. Get this man a goalie mask. And then Sharon is revealed to be the power broker, a twist that seems both overly obvious but also pretty inconsistent with the character's past behavior and timeline. We go all into it in Inside Marvel, but hey, the good news is, according to this, Sharon Carter is now apparently the MCU's most brilliant mastermind who also makes things weirdly hard for herself. And if that's the Sharon you love, cool. Now, you could argue Sharon never explicitly declares herself the power broker.
Without our super soldiers, how much power does a power broker really have?
More than you.
So you're the power broker.
But Sharon kills Batroc only because he threatens to expose her as the power broker to the world. As a woman behind the curtain, she needs anonymity. And if she wasn't the power broker here, she wouldn't care what Batroc told people. So Sam shows up to fight Carly, anchoring his wings in the concrete, similar to Spider-Man planting his extra arms while fighting Thanos. But Sam avoids fighting her. He does these flips and somersaults, the same ones that we saw him training with last episode. So I love looking back on that training as really defensive, conflict-avoiding training. Carly says,
"Stay down!"
No.
Yeah, similar to Iron Man saying this to the previous Cap in Civil War.
Stay down. Final warning.
Yeah, shame that Sam here doesn't say, I can do this all day, but I guess that's Steve's line. Walker quotes Abraham Lincoln.
Mercy bears richer fruit than strict justice.
Yeah, the president who oversaw the US Civil War, another sign that Walker is learning the lessons that these Avengers had to learn the hard way in their Civil War. So Carly dies in Sam's arms, holding the Hamsa pendant that she held at Mama Danya's deathbed. And as Sam carries her body, his outstretched wings evoke that of an angel delivering a soul to the afterlife. Or really down to Mephisto, because she's going to hell. I love how the reporters don't know what to make of Sam.
What are we calling her? Is it still Falcon? Or is it Captain Falcon?
Captain Falcon. I wonder what Sam's big move in Super Smash would be. So Sam lectures the GRC leaders to change course, telling them that they gotta do better. And if I can do better and you can do better, maybe we all can do better. Hey, pretty great. Really, even deeper than Sam's great points are the fact that we are seeing a Black Captain America publicly speaking truth to power. It is a core component to Cap's character that we saw when Steve debated Nick Fury in Captain America Winter Soldier, or stood up to Tony Stark in Civil War. And Bucky acknowledges this evolution.
Nice job, Cap.
Thanks. Bucky pats the shield. He is both complimenting Sam by calling him Cap and patting the shield as a way of saying, nice job, Steve, for choosing this guy. And the last time we see Sam in this suit on this series, he soars across the frame with the shield briefly in close-up, gliding past us. Meanwhile, the rest of the Flag Smashers go, boom, you looking for this? Detonated by Osnick, Zemo's butler from episode 3. And this news gets to Zemo on the raft prison from Civil War. He's wearing the same jumpsuits that they all wore then. On his shelf are a few books, Russian poet Alexander Pushkin, and Views of Nature by Alexander von Humboldt. I guess this is the Alexander shelf. Meanwhile, the book Zemo reads looks like the one he had in his cell in episode 3, Fortune is a River, which explores explores the friendship between Machiavelli and Leonardo da Vinci in Renaissance-era Florence, Italy. Now, I previously speculated that this book meant that the Machiavellian, Zemo, had a secret partnership with some Da Vinci figure in the shadows. Someone like...
Looks like our friend Zemo kind of got the last laugh.
Yes, Zemo's Da Vinci was De Fontaine. Since Osnick likely could not have arranged that bombing himself, it is clear Val must have helped.
Couldn't have worked better if I'd planned it myself.
Well, maybe I did. No, I'm kidding, I didn't. Or did I?
So the fact that Val has been in touch with Zemo, who's on the Raft, a facility overseen by Thunderbolt Ross, tells us that our theory that Val could be assembling a team of anti-heroes like the Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers may still be happening. And by saying the Flag Smasher's deaths is gonna save a lot of paperwork, redacting, and shredding, tells us that she must be part of some shadowy government division as opposed to working for Hydra or something. But Val has suited up John Walker as U.S. Agent, the dark-suited assassin from the comics that we expected him to end up as. Interesting to note, U.S. Agent also leads the Dark Avengers later in the comics. And Val ends by saying,
"Things are about to get weird. So when they do, we're not gonna need a Captain America. We're gonna need a U.S. agent."
Weird, hmm? Well, one way to look at weird is that Val knows about the Skrull infiltration and that the secret invasion is coming, and in a world where no one trusts anyone, having an untrustworthy Dark Cap is more valuable. But Val also said last episode that the government's ownership of the shield is a legal gray area, making me wonder if she knows about Old Cap and how he brought that shield from an alternate timeline, making it technically the property of an alternate timeline government. So maybe the weirdness she's referring to is a coming multiverse crisis, something that we could see more of with Loki in the TVA. Meanwhile, Bucky makes true amends with Mr. Nakajima and officially crosses Mr. Nakajima's name off the list, a list whose names that we have broken down in previous breakdowns, and he leaves that notebook as a gift for Dr. Rayner, leaving the frame with an empty couch and empty woods. Bucky is now out of the woods. Sam visits Isaiah Bradley again.
Black Captain America, huh?
Damn right.
And right as Sam says this, behind him, Eli Bradley enters the frame. Eli is the future Young Avenger Patriot, another Black Cap figure, but for now, he's still waiting his turn in line behind Sam. Meanwhile, behind Isaiah during the scene is interesting graffiti, the words, "Why me?" reflecting how both of these men had the burden of Captain America's legacy thrust upon them. Now, Isaiah brings up Martin, Malcolm, and Mandela, of course referring to civil rights leaders Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Nelson Mandela. But my favorite thing about this is this Atlanta neighborhood where they shot this scene is home to where Martin Luther King was born. The famous MLK house is visible at the end of the street in episodes 2 and 5. So Sam brings Isaiah to his new addition to Cap's Smithsonian exhibit, including this plaque that details the history that Isaiah told him about. Along with this old photograph, this shows Black World War II soldiers that actually inspired a panel in Truth, Red, White, and Black. I love how this bookends the shot that we saw back in episode 1, Sam's reflection as he stared at that shield in the display case. It was actually him realizing people who look like him have been erased from this history, as Sam's translucent form in that scene suggested. But now Sam has transformed this from an optical illusion to a tangible reality with this statue of Isaiah Bradley. And we celebrate with a family cookout, a reminder that fixing the Wilson family boat has always been a personal metaphor for Sam for restoring the legacy of the shield, which he has done. As Curtis Harding's On and On plays, the final credit revises the series title to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Then we get to this post-credit scene with Sharon receiving a full pardon to return to her old rank as Agent 13.
The Carter name has always been synonymous with service and trust. Welcome home, Agent Carter.
Two references there to Peggy Carter, Sharon's great aunt, who will show up in What If, and hopefully a future film with Steve Rogers in that alternate timeline. It was actually announced that a fourth Captain America film is in development from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier showrunner Malcolm Spellman, but that's probably going to follow Sam Wilson, not the Chris Evans Steve Rogers Cap films that may or may not be in development. And we end on another Power Broker tease from Sharon Carter talking to someone on the phone, maybe one of her Madripoor operatives or some other criminal group from the Marvel world. Hydra, 10 Rings, Hammer, AIM, Oscorp. Whoever this is, it's most likely setting up Sharon to return in the series Armor Wars, in which Rhodey is going to star in this miniseries about the weaponry of the MCU getting in the wrong hands. But my favorite detail about Sharon's final moments, as she exits the courtroom, the camera suddenly slows down and she looks directly at camera. It is as if she knows how much her Power Broker reveal broke us. But I gotta hand it to you, Agent Carter. I had my doubts, but it was you. all along. So those were our 6 breakdowns of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier from 2021. I hope you enjoyed revisiting them, and let us know what you're most curious about for Captain America Brave New World. Follow me at Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.